stay. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Weddy, GA, and Matt are here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say.
Well, for the first time in, is it 13 years we've been going now? I have not prepared a single thing for my little monologue at the beginning. Normally I have something prepared, but today I'm going to be speaking straight from the heart. Last week, as you know, we didn't have a show, and we apologise for that. It was basically because I caught the dreaded COVID. And because of that, on Monday I wasn't actually able to attend Birmingham Speedway, far too poorly at the time. So I watched it on the television, and it's probably the first time I've watched us on the television at Perry Bar when I haven't been there. And it gives you a whole different perspective on things. And the perspective I got mainly from Monday is, why are we bothering? Only in Speedway.
Very professionally done, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You had no script, by the way.
Just for once. I hate saying that, what I just said. I've supported Birmingham Speedway man and boy since 1970 whatever, and it really hurts me to say that, but I just feel at this point that if they can't pull some rabbit out of the hat. And don't get me wrong, by the way, I'm not blaming the Brummies management or anything for the situation they find themselves in. Speedway's got to sort itself out. They've got to look after the smaller clubs, which Birmingham unfortunately is at the moment. Otherwise there will be no Speedway, and they don't seem to realise that. And that's what I mean by why do we bother? Many of you will realise that we haven't actually got Matt in the studio today. Hi, Matt.
Woohoo!
Hello.
Where are you, mate?
I am in Plymouth at the moment. We're a week away.
Okay. No truth in the rumour that you're there because you didn't want to catch COVID off me then?
No. This was planned way before that.
Okay. But your thoughts on what I was just saying?
Well, I was there on a week ago on Monday, and it was pretty poor stuff, to be honest. I mean, that was amazing, really, that Birmingham would have been targeting as a win.
We should have won.
It started off reasonably well, a decent enough first, half of the macing, but just that little middle spell of the macing, that sort of between heats 9 and 12, they just completely imploded almost. And really that 5-1 that Birmingham got in the last state, I think sort of put a bit of a gloss on it that really wasn't there, because it was a really, I mean, the big advantage Oxford had, of course, was obviously having Craig Cook at reserve, who was exceptional. He really was. But massively disappointing. The biggest concern I would have had on Monday was the fact that it was a bank holiday meeting, and that's probably, of all the bank holiday meetings I've been to over the years, that's probably the poorest crowd I've seen for a bank holiday meeting. Oxford brought quite a few fans up, and to be fair, I mean, they've had as an abysmal start to the season as Birmingham have. They hadn't, until obviously they won earlier in the day. So that's a result that could do a severe amount of damage to Birmingham's season if it hasn't, sort of gone beyond the point of no return already. Yeah.
A couple of things to say about the Craig Cook 15-point maximum, apart from well done. They could have used him more, so it could have been even worse.
It could have been, yeah.
He had 5 rides, didn't they?
Yeah, a few people were sort of quite surprised that Peter Schreiber didn't give him more rides, weren't they, really? But
but it just shows that they didn't need to.
No, that's it. They had enough in. They had enough in the tank, and as I say, I mean, Birmingham had a decent start, but Oxford, you always felt that it was going to sort of be decided very, very late on. And really, as I say, Oxford had that little spell in the middle of the meeting where they sort of took the meeting away from Birmingham. In all honesty, certainly, and I don't think you could even point your fit. I don't think you could hang your hat on it being a really good meeting either, because the track was pretty poor. I thought, it was very, very dry, very, very dusty.
I think that's
again,
been true.
Again, a track completely different to how it had been the week before. You look at someone like Tobias Muehlek, who did a superb performance in the previous meeting for the Brummies, turns up for the Oxford meeting, and the track, it almost seems like the track's completely different, but it was completely different.
Right.
It's not great when the home riders turning up for a home meeting and they don't know what sort of track they're going to be riding on.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I mean, as far as the dust is concerned, I think a lot of tracks are having trouble with that at the moment. Not just Birmingham. It's been a very, very dry winter, and we'll be having host bans no doubt soon. I mean, Leicester actually had to stop the meeting, didn't they, because they couldn't see, as I understand it.
Last night, the meeting got banned after heat 14, I think.
So I think that's a problem for British Speedway everywhere. I don't know whether the shale is not as good as it used to be. It doesn't seem to have the same consistency as what it used to. And I mean, look at the weather today.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know what it's like down in Plymouth, but it's hot here.
Yeah, it's been the same down here. It's been very, very sort of humid and hot, and it's going to be like this for the rest of the week, I think. So.
However, also I would say is that, I mean, it's that old thing. It's the same track for everybody.
Well, that's true, yeah. But you always feel if the home team doesn't. I mean, Birmingham. The biggest issue Birmingham had over the years is people say that they don't have a home track advantage. Well, they're not going to have a home track advantage if the track's completely different every week.
Yeah.
That doesn't help. I mean, you look at, ironically, Matty Zagar, when he was at Bellevue while they were still at the Greyhound track, I remember seeing an interview that he did, and he said, I don't mind if the track's rough, as long as it's rough every week, not rough one week, smooth the next week, because you turn up and it's someone like, pot luck, what sort of track are you going to get?
They definitely, I mean, it's been an issue at Birmingham for 3 or 4 seasons now, and they really do need to get some sort of handle on it. But of course, it always costs money, and that's a problem. That's a problem.
I'll send you some images in a bit. I'll put them up of the track at Leicester. Somebody just sent me.
Oh, okay. That would be fun. Talk about a different track beside Birmingham. That would be nice. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll come on to that at some point soon, and love to hear people's comments about it as well. Talking of comments, we've got a few. Pete Clark says, water everywhere, but not a drop in Leicester. I think they actually ran out of water, didn't they?
I think so, yeah.
Craig Smith, I had half of Bellevue shale on me last night. The shower was black last night, like the good old days, fitted in on the Ben's shale in your point. Methanol in the air on a warm summer's evening, perfection. We will come on to last night's meeting, which by all accounts was a belter. I managed to see the last heat, and that was worth seeing.
It would just a bit, wouldn't it? So yes. You'd have to go a long, long way to see a better race than that.
Yeah. Great meeting at Bellevue last night per crowd, said Clive Woodier. I noticed that in that one heat that we saw, there was a lot of spare places in an event that traditionally people pour into.
I don't understand. Having moved to a Saturday last year, I don't really understand why they've made the decision to move it back to a Monday night this year. I went last year and the crowd was really, really good. And Saturday seems to be the ideal day for that sort of meeting, doesn't it? So not really tucked away on a Monday night when you've got to get the kids up for school the next day, or you've got to be up for 6 o'clock to go to work. So.
I bet I can give you a reason in one word. Poland.
Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah.
Most of those riders, certainly the top guys in that meeting last night, they all ride in Poland. And what day does Poland ride on? They ride on a Saturday, don't they?
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Well,
I
Sunday
think
as well. They're
Saturday
on,
and
so
Sunday. Well, yeah.
Sunday's there seems to be their main day, of course. But
so I think that's probably got a lot to do with it. Would be my guess, but it's a shame to see that poorer crowd at what was once an absolute premier event in this sport.
Yeah, many memories of struggling to get out of the car park at Coventry after British finals over the years, and with just their one entrance to the car park and one exit out of it. So,
Craig Smith says TNT Sports may be the reason as well. But we've been, like you said, I've been to Wolverhampton, watched a British final when Sky have been there, for instance, and that hasn't seemed to have affected the crowd. It's always been difficult to get in.
I'll just send you.
No, not really. No, I mean, obviously, we were in a position where it had to be a Monday night because that was the only night of the week could stay at the Speedway. Bellevue have got the option where they can move it around. I just wonder as well with the Grand Prix, with both of the Grand Prix, of course, at Bellevue as well, whether there might be some mileage, and Richard Lawson, I think, has spoke about this, hasn't he? It's possibly one of the reasons why, of course, he withdrew from the British final, because he feels that it should be moved around the tracks as opposed to having a Bellevue every single season. I mean, certainly in terms of I've only seen the final from last night, and it was one of those races where I think all four riders were in all four positions at one point during the race.
Unbelievable race. Have you seen it, Chris?
Bomber was leading, I think, going into the last lap, wasn't he? He managed to get in front, and I think he was second coming out the last bend. And then,
I think everybody was in first and everybody was in last at some point in that race.
You feel for Bomber, really, don't you? Because he's had the last three British finals. I think it's not a track at Bellevue that really suits him, but he's been superb in the last three British finals and just fallen short of getting that wild card spot for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, he was. He's such an outstanding ambassador for this sport.
Oh yeah, I mean we've said many times you could stick landmines all over a track and he'd still go full throttle, wouldn't he? So he's just, he's just one of those riders. He just loves racing, doesn't he? At the end of the day, I don't know what he would do if he decided to retire. I think he'd get bored very quickly, to be honest.
So I'm just looking at some pictures here that Chris has put up of the Leicester meeting, and you can't see a thing. You literally, wow. You can see one rider in that picture. You can't see any riders in that picture.
And half a bike on that picture.
Yeah.
How did that keep going?
It's incredible, isn't
it? Craig Smith says the national title, I feel, should be at the National Stadium. However, could we do something similar to the Aussies and have 3 or 4 tracks with the final round at Bellevue? Most points scored goes on to win it.
I think there is mileage in that, to be honest. So.
I forgot to say thank you to Phil McGlynn for sending those pictures in. Sorry.
Oh yes, Phil. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Phil.
Those are out. Wow. I should be on the front cover of the Speedway Star next week. That's what I think. Anyway, that's so. I mean, we're laughing about it, but that is so dangerous.
There's another one as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Brian Reeson says a huge crowd at Foxhall on Bank Holiday Monday versus Kings Lynn. Biggest disappointment was the track. Blue groove after 4 heats. Dust everywhere. How the ref could see is beyond me, especially bends 1 and 2. So, I mean, it's not just a Birmingham problem, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you something though. I mean, Kings Lynn didn't really give Ipswich a run for the money in that meeting. I think they were about 8 points in front at one point, so... everyone's talking about everyone's going to go to Ipswich and get beaten 60-30. Well, Kings Lynn had a real good go. Maybe the track sort of caught the Ipswich riders out a little bit, and of course, that once they sort of got dialed in, they pulled away in the end. But that was pretty good going from Kings Lynn in that meeting, I think. So
it's strange. It's a strange thing to say this about Ipswich this year, given how much they're dominating the sport at the moment, but I feel they're a little bit fragile.
Well, they haven't really had a challenge, have they?
No,
so far. I mean, that was probably the close. Well, apart from obviously the match at Birmingham, Birmingham obviously pushed to in that home meeting. But whether that's complacency, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, you've got riders like Saifullah and Doyle. I mean, they're pretty experienced and top class riders anyway. So, but yeah, maybe a sort of a shock is what they need in that sense.
Well, I think they've had a couple now, so. We might as well. You look at it and you think, well, you might as well give the title to Ipswich now because nobody's come close to. I'm just looking at another picture.
That's incredible. It's quite a good picture, that is. It's quite prolific, isn't it?
Where? Pete Clark says the dust at Birmingham has never been that bad. Yeah, that's probably true, but I think it's the team that's the problem at the moment. Yeah, it's everywhere, and blue grooves everywhere. We keep hearing blue grooves everywhere as well.
What are blue grooves? Explain to me.
What's a blue
I have heard it
grooves?
before, but
Okay, so
for those who don't know, like me,
okay, so the track can become so compacted in one area, which is the area where they normally drive over, that it starts leaving rubber on the track. And that then becomes what they call a blue groove, and that's where all the grip is. So everybody just plays follow the lead around the blue groove because there's no point going anywhere else.
well, okay.
Essentially, other people probably describe it better than that. Simon Corbett says Doyle very average this year on the way down. He didn't do great in the GP, did he?
No, he didn't. He obviously that was his first Grand Prix back after his long life through last season, and he wasn't great. But then again, I don't think Emil Saifullah hasn't been quite on it so far this year either.
No.
But I think that's the advantage that Ipswich I think you've got really at the moment, isn't it? Is that they're top tier riders. They don't need to be totally dependent on them because they're strong.
They've got a top 5 of heat leaders essentially.
Yeah. They've got good reserves, as Birmingham found out as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, they pretty much won that meeting for Ipswich on their own, didn't they? So.
Really, yeah, they did. Clive Woodier asks the $1 million question at the moment. What's happening about Zagar?
We don't know, do we?
We don't know. I mean, I know that apparently Nigel Tolley said something about, and if I've got this wrong, people will correct me, I hope, something in the programme on Monday about there's going to be some big news at the next meeting.
I saw that.
Yeah.
With no hint as to what it is. I mean, your hope is that it's a signing. That's what your hope would be. Bartosz Marshall could do quite well at the moment. But that's what your hope would be, I guess. But but also in the mix could be news about the future.
I would tend to think it's more likely going to be something about the future. I would have thought that was the impression that I get reading the comments. I think it's all sort of up in the air at the moment, isn't it? With
what's
with the
happening
club
with
about what's going to happen at the end of this year. Well, I think a lot of people know what's going to happen at the end of this year as things stand. Of course, the Greyhounds are leaving.
They're leaving in August, of course, and that's, or at least that's what I've heard, and that's obviously a worry as well.
That's still going on. It's still going ahead.
As far as
Definitely.
I'm aware.
Oh, right,
as far as I'm aware, yeah.
Okay.
Anna Bree Ton, I think, is what that says. After the first lap, heat 12, you couldn't see any riders from. Somebody else going to have to read this for me. Being at 3 at Leicester, but heat 14 was race of the day with 3 of them online in the finish. There was good races throughout the meeting despite the dust. I'm presuming that we're talking about the Ipswich meeting there.
And there's a picture to prove the dust did settle.
Okay.
Eventually. Great picture. Please send us your pictures
yes,
as long as you got permission to do
course.
so. Thanks.
Craig Smee says Lindgren back to Brummies.
I can't say that myself.
No, I don't think.
I would be astounded. It'd be a great move for Birmingham.
It would be fantastic
with all the other leagues he's doing as well. I just don't see how he can fit the British League in at the moment.
No, it would be fantastic, as I say, but I've been surprised before. Craig Smith says, hopefully a long-term lease for Speedway at Birmingham.
That's what you really want.
Absolutely, that would be, because then they can start planning for next year now, which is I think they need to do.
Yeah, well, they can't plan at all at the moment, can they? With because just the whole, the immediate future is up in limbo at the moment. So
yeah, that they've had this juggling act to play of are we racing, and when should we start signing riders every single season, really.
Well, it's been since really for the last 4 or 5 seasons, hasn't it? Even before going back to COVID, there was always that debate at the end of the season: is the club going to run again next year? And you can't really you can't plan for the long term in Speedway when it almost seems like the club's just living hand to mouth and just staggering on, and it's not a great look to if you're getting sponsors in or trying to increase your crowds. If
it's not a great look if you're trying to sign a rider.
Reading about his future being in doubt.
It's not a great look when you're trying to sign a rider as well.
Well, this is another thing. This is adds to the problem. And again, we've had this discussion before, haven't we, about the fact that it seems to be a completely different team at Birmingham every season. And again, you can't sort of get any affinity with riders because then 1 minute they're there, the next minute they're riding with somebody else.
It's usually the riders that you want to stay that bugger off. I mean, like Tom Brennan, for instance. I'm not in any way, shape, or form blaming Tom Brennan. He's got to do what's right for him, but. From a
absolutely, he wasn't great by all accounts in the British final, though. From what I saw, he didn't make the. I mean, he was superb in it last year, of course, finishing third. But we obviously got to talk about Robert Lamond, haven't we? First British title. I think it was. I mean, we'll do our prediction league shortly, but that was a real Cooper and Buster. I think only one person scored a point for the British final on our predictions because only one person went for Robert Lambert to win. Everybody went for Bewley to do it with home track advantage. Of course.
I would have picked Bewley if I was doing it.
But nobody went for Charles Wright to get in the top 3 either. So. A few people went for Bomber.
Did they? And Bomber just surprised. He surprises you so much; it's not a surprise anymore.
Well, that's it.
Can you put? There's a comment just above. There you go. Phil Taylor said, "Good to hear Matt is in glorious Plymouth. Enjoy your stay, Matt. Up the Gladiators."
Yeah, might be taking in Plymouth on Saturday when they race against Edinburgh. Haven't decided yet. Have you coming back the following day?
Right.
So,
have you been to Plymouth before?
I've never been there. No, it's always nice when you go to a track for the first time and you sort of can tick that one off the list, can't you? So it's about 10 minutes away from where I'm staying. So it's it's on our minds to take it in while we're down here. So.
Craig Smith says, with everything in the air about the Brummies, it must be hard as a business model to promote. If a 5-10 year lease, hopefully longer, is secured, at least then they can get sponsorship on board, riders as assets, etc. I mean, that would be lovely, but I don't think there's a cat and hell's chance of getting more than a 2-year lease, I would think.
As far as I know, clubs can't have assets anymore. I think they've changed the rules, haven't they, now?
I believe so.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that in both leagues? In all leagues?
All 3 leagues, yeah.
Really? Yeah, crikey.
Well, National League clubs couldn't have assets anyway, because I know that when the late Graham Drury was on our show 5 or 6 years ago, he was quite scathing about the fact that National League clubs weren't allowed to have assets, but it applies to the top 2 leagues now. So,
right, what's the benefits of that?
I think it's to stop people. It's the Paul factor in it. I mean, Paul had nearly every rider.
Riders,
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's a few, I think, joke things here. I hope they're jokes. I hope they're not serious. So Simon Corbett said, bring back the Pawlicki brothers on fire in Poland. As I understand it, Piotr Pawlicki wasn't fire in Poland last year.
It wasn't even far in Britain, I know that.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't have caught a cold. Dave Twine says, just read this on the forum. Try tempting Timo Lahti over. I'm sure he will be valuable and do a sterling job. Last week in Sweden, excellent. Tonight in Sweden, poor.
Didn't he have a short spell at Birmingham
You did, yeah.
a few years ago? I think it was the last year before COVID.
Yeah,
Sure it was.
We've got his goggles are in this room.
They are.
somewhere.
They're above you,
Yeah,
just in the corner there.
yeah. He gave me his goggles for the show.
What a
Yeah,
great.
he made a good impression as well, didn't he, that season? He was quite popular.
It was okay, yeah. Particularly towards the end of the season, but I think that was in the championship, wasn't it?
It was in the championship, yeah. So
Yeah. So
And a great name.
Timo Latte.
yeah.
It's okay. Right, so we have a chat about the GPs then.
Yes, Warsaw coming up obviously over the weekend. Really now I think the glamour round, isn't it? The national stadium obviously in Poland. Now that we've lost Cardiff, of course, and as traditionally has actually produced for a temporary track some pretty good racing, doesn't it? So
Yes.
can Bartosz Smolzik finally win the Grand Prix in his home national capital city? Because of course it's the one that's eluded him so far. I don't think he's even got to the final, has he? He might have got it once, but
He's come out. He's started absolutely on fire, hasn't he?
yeah, he's been flying, hasn't he? He was completely in a class of his own, wasn't he? In Landshut. And obviously, I think from what I gather as well, has been trying out other forms of motorcycle racing since then as well.
Right.
I've seen photographs on Twitter of him racing on, I think it's Polish superbikes, is it?
Okay.
Something like that. So maybe he's got bored with winning the Speedway Grand Prix every single season. So
I just feel that there is such an aura around him at the moment, even from the other guys, that they're turning up already beaten.
I think it's sort of very, very similar to the dominant era of Tony Riccarton, where there was only riders like Jason Crump, I think, who had the belief that they could go out on the track and beat him. But I think Smarslik has sort of is even further ahead now than Riccarton was against the competitors of his era. It'd be fantastic if we could have some sort of time machine that could transfer Bartosz Smalzik to racing Speedway in 2002 when Riccarton was in his prime, just to compare them. So.
Or Ivan Major as well. Put Ivan Major in the mix as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always very, very difficult to compare the eras, isn't it? Because completely different. The Riccarton and Smalzik eras, there's only 20 years between them, so it's sort of a bit more. Whereas you look at Major's dominant era was the 60s and the 70s, when the sport was completely different. Completely different. Sort of. Well, of course, the competition was completely different because it was the one-off World Finals, obviously, in Major's days. So
it's So I was saying earlier that you can almost give Ipswich the title now. I'm sure they hate me for saying that because it's a bit of a jinx. But you could almost say the same after the first round. You could almost say the same about Bartosz Smalzik, couldn't you?
He's going to get different challenges during the year, but I just don't think anybody's going to be consistent enough to challenge him over the course of the season. Not knocking Bartosz Smalzik, because at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of him.
Of course.
It's always a thing for me. Is it just that he's so much better than all of the other riders around him? I mean, there's a bit of predictability now about the GPs because. I think is it three years in a row. Smalzik's won it 4. Obviously, this year with 4 in a row. Nobody's ever done that before.
Nobody's ever done that. Yeah.
No, so
I think it's probably a bit of everything. I think the current crop of GP riders are quite a lot of up and coming riders at the moment, like your Robert Lamberts, like your Dan Bewleys, and that area seems to be where, if there's any sort of challenge going to come, that seems to be the area it's going to come from.
Yeah, you could possibly say Freddie Lindgren as well, but Freddie's at a disadvantage, of course, because he's sort of coming towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
He was sort of average, I thought, in the first GP, and he did this last year, didn't he? Started slowly, and then obviously came back to the UK, and of course got better after he came back to the UK, and he had that regular action there. So,
maybe he will come back to Birmingham.
He might come back to the UK. I suspect it might not be for Birmingham. No.
Pete Clark says, on the bright side, Paco did well. going back to the Birmingham match.
He was scathing about the track from what I've been told as well. But listen. I mean, obviously, we've had Paco on the show before. He's a great character. He was always very, very popular with the Birmingham crowd. And one thing you know about him, he'll always give 110%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whether at home, I think he's certainly a rider that I think a Perry Barr can hold his own. Whether he'll do enough on the road, but I think Birmingham needs to concentrate on winning matches at home, never mind winning away as well. So.
Absolutely. Craig Smith says Jason Crump would have had more world titles had Tony Rickardson not been immense.
I believe that. I think Crump's one of those riders that would have excelled in both eras.
And you could possibly say the other way around as well. Tony Rickardson might have had a couple more had Jason Crump not been about.
Well, it's interesting because I listened to a podcast that Rickardson did about 4 or 5 years ago, and he talks about his great rivals and his great rivalries in the sport. And I assumed he would say Jason Crump, but he said the most intense rivalry he had was with Golub, because at the time that they were both going against each other for the championship, Speedway was on a high in Sweden and obviously in Poland. And I mean, he talks about the fact that going to a Grand Prix in Poland and he needed the police escort to get into the stadium. And likewise, Golub, when he went to Sweden was absolutely hated by the Swedish media and the Swedish supporters. And it was just such an intense rivalry, apparently. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. So, but Crump, obviously, I think was, over a longer period of time was, and and possibly Nicky Pedersen as well. Although Nicky's dominance didn't come until after Tony had stopped. So,
Jeff Daniels says this is the last GP in this stadium. He's talking about Warsaw, I presume. On Saturday, a report I read is it cost 12 million zloty, which equates to £2.5 million. That is probably the same reason why Cardiff went. Speedway not sustainable in these type of stadiums, sadly.
Yeah, I had read something about that. I mean, I think the crowd sizes in Warsaw were sort of bigger for that than they were for
Cardiff.
For Cardiff, yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, certainly we saw the racing in the British final last night. That whets the appetite of what we could see in the 2 Grand Prix there. So,
I mean, let's hope so.
Are the stadiums in Poland, are they purpose built for Speedway?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they are.
And they're all much of the same sort of. They're all big as well, aren't they? From what I can.
Yeah, they're all big, and I think they're all owned by local councils, aren't they? So they give more access to the tracks for preparation than they do, rather than having just one afternoon a week. So some clubs seem to be keen to get to work on their tracks in this country. So.
Yeah. Rich Thomas says the planning is now in for houses on the remainder of Abbey Stadium, Swindon. Sad news indeed.
Sad news, but unfortunately for me, not unexpected.
No.
I think it's, I think right from the moment that Swindon announced that they're going to get the new stadium, that was got to be 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. There's always been this sort of feeling that this isn't going to end well for Swindon.
This is Reading Mark II.
Yeah, absolutely. Reading was exactly the same thing. I mean, the frustrating thing with Reading is the fact that Smallmead, the site is still there. In fact, I think you can still see the outline of the track as well, but they just, there's no way they're going to be able to get back in there. I think there's still efforts being made in Reading, but it's gone very, very quiet now on that front as well. And hopefully, I suppose the one thing that will give these clubs a little bit of encouragement is the fact that Oxford managed to find their way back. After such a quite a long period of time, and of course, the obviously the major one really that's working on that at the moment is Coventry. So,
Clive Woodier says the bees are coming back. It certainly
we'll keep our fingers crossed. I'm pretty. I wouldn't say confident, but I'm pretty hopeful that we'll see Speedway back at Coventry at some point.
At Brandon.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I
think so. Yeah, I've said all along, it's tall order. I think I've said the easiest thing is stopping them from building it. It's getting the site back off them that's going to be the hard bit. But I believe if anybody can do it, they can. They've put so much, hard work and I mean, we had Jeff Davis on the show, didn't we, a couple of years ago, and he spoke very, very professionally. And I know for Jeff, it's pretty much a full-time job now. This, so
we probably should.
We hopefully wish him well, because with doubts over Birmingham, obviously the loss of Wolves and the loss of Cradley, we need a club back in this area, and Coventry, he's probably the standout club in this area in terms of size and stature, and that's coming from Wolverhampton supporter who doesn't like saying that, but
I'm with you.
When were they elite champions? When was it? When was the last? 'Cause it wasn't that long ago,
Coventry?
was it? Coventry, yeah.
Coventry 2010 when they beat Poole.
Right.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Which many people would argue possibly started the problems, beating Poole in that final. Because it's fair to say Poole didn't like it, didn't they? And of course, we all remember what happened afterwards with the Coventry and Peterborough saga, and that, of course, forced Birmingham into the top league, and we all know how that ended as well.
Yeah. Not great. Craig Smith says, hopefully Swindon gets the new site off the motorway. What's the motorway?
Sentimental dream.
Wow.
Sentimental melody.
You've just lost half the audience.
Some people will know
Hopefully
that song.
Swindon get the new site off the motorway secured as well as a multi-sports venue.
Swindon as a club is more than viable. They won the league title in there last season, didn't they? So they were the dominant. They were really the dominant sport club in the sport when they closed. And I always think it's a little bit, what's the word? Unsatisfactory when a club wins the league and they don't come back the following season. And that's what happened with Swindon. They won the league in 2019. They've not come back since. Same with Bradford when they won it.
Did a similar thing
Workington as well, yeah.
Maybe we don't want to win the league then.
Yes.
Of course, that's the dichotomy within Speedway, isn't it? Yeah, yes, I said dichotomy.
I haven't got a clue.
There you go.
Long, good God.
I think he
I'm
played
not
for.
been in the sun too long now.
Didn't he play for Arsenal?
Like that, so.
Centre back for Arsenal.
No, anyway, is that okay? If you have a successful team, it costs you more money because you pay for the points that your riders score, so it costs you more money. You have better riders as well, so they're probably getting more per point as well. And I think that was the problem like that Workington had, because they was paying out more than was coming in. So it's a real dilemma, which is is that a better word for it?
Yeah, I can understand that one.
It's a real dilemma for promoters when they get to sign in there. How successful do I actually want to be?
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm aware,
it's especially expensive when you're banging in 60 points every meeting as well, which is what Ipswich and Sheffield have been doing.
And you have to think, is there a better model?
Yeah.
Is there a better model? I don't know.
I should imagine there are times where teams are in the Championship and they're doing so well, thinking, if we do move up a league, is that what you're trying to say?
No, it literally costs you more to win a league than it does to come last.
Right, okay.
Because you're paying more out to the riders for points. The riders get paid for how many points they score. So if you're scoring, as Matt said, if you're scoring 60 points, right, and the away team's scoring 30 points, they're probably coming away thinking, phew, we got away, we won there, we ain't going to have to pay such a lot of money,
Oh, crikey, that's all wrong, isn't it?
So that's, yeah.
God, yeah. That needs
how you would change that, I don't know. I was thinking about all of this the other day, and Speedway's problems, particularly in this country, all stem for one thing, and that is not having one rider per one team. I think it all comes from that. It makes it unviable, in my opinion. Craig Smith says, does anyone know about the campaign to bring Lakeside Thurrock Hammers back to track? Seems to have gone a bit quiet on that front as well. It has gone quiet. I haven't heard anything for a while.
Talking of Lakeside, we should point out as well, it's 13 years today since we lost Lee Richardson.
Wow. That only seems like yesterday.
Yeah, 13 years. I couldn't believe it myself when I read that this morning. So
That's well, you've you've just stopped the show there. I don't know what to say. That's some 13 years. Wow.
Hasn't Ryan been tarmacked over? Presumably it would have to be a brand new venue as well. That's Craig.
Because Pete Clark was saying there's a Rye House campaign.
Yeah,
I don't know. Has it been tarmacked over?
I think it's in a pretty poor condition now. I don't think the track's there. I think that's been pulled up. So,
Right.
but again, I think Rye House again. The problem with Rye House, they made the decision to move up, and then they lost the Saturday nights, and they were running I think Monday nights, and just didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that we need to get Saturday nights back in this country. And Poland just ride roughshod over the rest of Speedway, and that's short-sighted on
Well,
their
the
part.
thing is, they're allowed to as well.
Yes.
Which, I mean, to a point, I could understand it because you watch some of these Polish meetings, and you look at the atmosphere and the crowds they get, and the almost like the ultras, if you like, with the chanting, and you can understand if you're a rider why you want to ride in front of that, as opposed to sort of racing in the UK when you're racing in front of one man and his dog at some meetings. So, and even the dog looks like he would rather be somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, again, a lot of that has come from because that used to be this country.
It did, yeah, many years
That's
ago.
how that's why it used to be like. I mean, you used to support, Chris supported Speedway in those days.
Yeah. Big crowds.
Yeah, and the atmosphere was usually when Cradley come to town, but
Yes, from both our perspectives, I think so.
Craig Smith says what a rider Lee Richardson was as well. Absolutely.
I think probably the only top British rider in the last sort of 25, 30 years that was consistently good at gating as well. Was and you look at his scores in the World Cup as well. He was, I think he's still got the record for the highest number of points scored in a World Cup. He was always very, very dependable riding at that level. So
he really was. I mean, I would suggest anybody search Lee Richardson out in the World Team Cup on YouTube. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, and a smashing guy as well. I met Lee quite a few times. A really, really very approachable, affable guy. So it's it's quite a sobering thought that even the top riders, it can happen.
Craig Smith says Poland pays the big money. British Speedway simply can't compete with that. The reason Poland pays the big money is because they've got the crowds. We used to have the crowds, and we used to have Sky Money, and it's just all whittled away. We could pay. There was a point until maybe 15 years ago, maybe we could pay the big money, and it's all been whittled away. John, I'm being really, really depressing today. I do apologise. Roger Dainty says, "Is there any truth in Entrain selling Monmore?" Have you heard anything, Matt?
No, I haven't heard anything. Nobody seems to be saying anything about what's happening with Monmouth at the moment. Of course, especially now, of course, with this new ground track that's going to be opening at Dunstall Park. Of course, nobody's really said either why Ensign made the decision to kick us out a couple of years ago. I know there was some sort of storyline that came in afterwards that they were concerned about the shale landing on the track and injuring the dog's feet, but that's been a problem. That's been a problem for nearly 100 years. So why that's suddenly become a problem afterwards? It's sort of something that nobody seems to want to say anything about, unfortunately. So, but don't really want to get onto the Monmouth talk at the moment because as far as Speedway is concerned, there's no way of getting back into Monmouth Green now. That one's dead in the water. So the future's going to be somewhere else, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Simon Corbett says, once tracks go, not many come back. Don't blame Poland. We got it wrong here. We were dominant here. I would go along with that.
Yep.
How much money do TNT pay each club each year? Asks Clive Woodier. And the simple answer is, I don't know.
I don't think it's anywhere near the sort of money that Sky were dishing out in the 90s.
No.
That was a massive missed up. I've said before, that was a massive missed opportunity for Speedway.
Yeah.
The money that was coming in for Sky, they really could have put down some proper, foundations in with that. But
it was massively
unfortunately-
popular, even to people who didn't follow Speedway when it was on Sky. It was,
yeah, some of the early Sky matches are on YouTube, and you watch them now, and some of the crowds and the atmosphere is incredible at some of these meetings, and that's not that long ago. It's only 25 years ago.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It's whittled away very, very quickly. I mean, you still get the odd. So, like at the moment, apparently, Ipswich is rocking.
Right. Okay.
Workington, I think, are getting good crowds. That's one track I'd love to get up to at some point. I'm hearing really good things about the racing at Workington. Glasgow as well. They're obviously doing well under their management.
So
it is possible, and you'd think in a town like Birmingham,
yeah,
you could, if you only got 1%,
So, I mean, the city's
or 0.1%.
I mean, the catchment areas. I think it's got one of the biggest catchment areas in Europe. You think, incredible. Just need somebody with that spark, just somebody with that venture.
So Reginald Barker says that yes, they pay more. I presume talking about Poland, but attendance is higher, so more money through the turnstiles, and that makes it of more interest to the sponsors. If a team is successful, Speedway is a business run properly to be a success. Yeah, I think there's truth in that. I just wonder whether that ship has sailed now.
I think it has.
Yeah,
Certainly, the prospects of getting a big money TV deal again. I think are in the past, because they've had the chance before and didn't take it, unfortunately.
They need a long-term plan of starting from scratch.
Well, we had, when Phil Lanning was on last year, this is pretty much the same thing that he said. It's pretty much at ground zero now, and it's going to take. You're not looking at a 3-year plan. You're looking at a much longer plan than that if you're going to get. Sort of strip it back to basics and just, it's almost like rip it up and start again. In some ways. I mean, the potential's there, and certainly when you look at that final at Bellevue last night, you see what Speedway's capable of. There's no better sport in the world than Speedway for when it's on song. And that was a great example of that.
I mean, I love Formula One. I do. But I do spend quite a lot of time asleep when I'm watching it. Because there's such a lot of nothing happening. It's interesting to me because of things that are going on under the surface. But racing wise, Formula One cannot compete with what we saw at Bellevue yesterday. Can't compete with it.
No, the only passing you get is when they're in the pits, aren't you? So.
I don't know. Okay, so it is now 1:45 or close to 1:45.
It's actually 12 minutes to.
Okay, we better get on with the
we'll have
prediction league.
We'll have to go quickly through it, won't we? I'll go through the tables first. If you want to have a quick look at there, I'll put it into big so you can see it, Mike. So on top we've got Nick Skippy Matthews, followed by Andrew Garner, Matt Book, followed by Brian Book. Chris Thorogood and Andrew Green takes up 6th place. Right on the bottom, Dylan Spuddy Hodgins. What happened to him? Chris Brown, the handsome bloke.
How have you got ahead of me? How did that happen?
I ain't
You had a really good second week, I think. So
yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
I think you actually finished top last week, Chris. To be fair,
Really?
Wow.
I think you did. Yeah, I think you were the top scorer. I think you got about 16 points. I think.
Obviously.
Ridiculous like that. So.
And you all laughed at me. You
Yeah.
all laughed at some of my decisions. There
We
go.
really did.
And there's the table as well. Oh yeah, that's the table for last week. Look at that. Get in there.
Wow.
And you all laughed.
Something wrong with the world.
Yeah. And I think the defending champion's in ninth, I think, at the moment. Have I got that right? Mr. Corbett.
Brian Buck's in ninth. I'm there.
Simon Corbett, yeah,
Yeah,
ninth.
yeah.
And who's in the studio? Who's bringing up the rear at the moment? I'm only saying that because I've just looked.
We don't need to worry about that.
I should get
Yeah,
COVID.
I've got the fixtures in front of me for this week, by the way. So,
Have we got the fixtures anywhere?
Yep, I've got them in front of me.
Okay. Right. Okay.
We've got 9 minutes. There we go.
Let's plough through these then, guys.
Okay, so we'll start off first of all in the championship tomorrow. Poole against Scunthorpe.
I've no idea who's got to go first, so I'll go first.
Okay.
We should say good luck to Daryl Richins in that match.
Yep.
I'm going to say Poole by 6 points. Over to you, Matt.
I'm going to say Poole by 14.
Okie dokie.
I'll go Poole by 12.
Okay, so moving on to Thursday in the Premiership, Leicester against Kings Lynn.
Up to you, Matt.
Leicester by 10. I'll go for on that one.
I'll go Leicester by 12.
Leicester by 14.
Okay. Oxford against Bellevue is the next one. That's also on Thursday.
That's up to me, isn't it?
It is, yep.
Oxford by 4.
Bellevue by 4.
I'm going to say Oxford by 6. Okay, next up, what about this one then? Sheffield against Ipswich.
Whoa.
And that's up to you, Mike.
Would have to be up to me, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Ipswich by 2.
Well, Sheffield are being banging in 60 every home meeting. I don't know whether if they're banging 60 in this one, I'll be quite impressed.
Yes.
I'll go for Sheffield by 4.
I'll go Sheffield by 12. There you go. That's my big one for this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on now to Friday. Edinburgh against Poole in the Championship.
That's up to you, Matt.
Poole by 4.
I'll go Poole by 6.
Am I going to go for a draw? No, Poole by 4.
Yeah. Yep. Also on Friday, Scunthorpe against Glasgow.
That's up to you, Chris.
Glasgow by 4.
Who was that again? Sorry, I was writing something down.
Scunthorpe against Glasgow.
Scunthorpe versus Glasgow. Scunthorpe by 10.
Okay. I'll go Scunthorpe by 4. Well, Glasgow have had a good start to the season, to be fair. So. Right, on Saturday in the National Development League, Middlesbrough against the Steelers.
Middlesbrough versus Steelers. That's up to me, isn't it?
No, it's up to me.
Oh, go on then.
I'll say Middlesbrough by 10.
I'll say Middlesbrough by 4.
I'll go Middlesbrough by 12.
Okay. Yeah, back in the Championship, Berwick against Poole.
That's up to you, Matt.
Poole by 10.
Poole by 6.
Poole by 12.
Okay. Plymouth against Edinburgh is the next one.
Plymouth versus Edinburgh. That's up to me, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Plymouth by 4.
Draw.
Oh,
I was going to go for a draw as well. In fact, I think I will on that one.
Okay.
Might take that meeting in. I don't know yet. So
If you do, Phil Taylor says if Matt does go to Plymouth's meeting Saturday to pop over to Ben 2 and meet the Bar Bandits, he will be made very welcome.
with possibly
with a beverage or two.
So, there we go.
There you
well,
go.
I got a long drive back the following day, so I might have to skip that one. But But thank you very much. Yep. Bellevue against Leicester is the next one.
That's up to you, Mike.
Bellevue versus Leicester. Bellevue by 8.
Bellevue by 10.
I'll go Bellevue by 4.
Okay. Kings Lynn against Sheffield is the next one.
And that's you, Matt, is it?
It is.
Sheffield by 4.
I'll go Sheffield by 8.
Just because I've got to start picking up points different from you guys, I'm going to say Kings Lynn by 2.
It wouldn't shock me if Kings Lynn beat them, to be fair. So,
Well, that's what I thought.
and finally, Birmingham against Ipswich.
Oh my God.
That's up to me, isn't it?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Usually you get that, isn't it, Gio? So,
Yeah.
Ipswich by 16.
Ipswich by 26.
I see Ipswich by 14.
I'd
I'd love to be able to say Birmingham win, but I just cannot see it.
No.
I know they got close to them last time, but I can't see them they're going to catch Ipswich again like that.
And in the last couple of minutes, give me your rider of the week from the meetings you've seen, either live or on TV or whatever.
Chris Harris for me.
Chris Harris, okay. We've had a couple, one for Vinny, one for Robert Lambert.
Matt, what have you got a rider of the week?
You know what? I'd love to give it equal to all 4 of those riders that rode in the British Grand Final last night, but I think I'm just going to go with you. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say Bomber.
Oh, okay.
I think it's maybe they could have worked it so that Charles Wright got the wild card in one of the GPs and Chris Harris got the wild card in the other one. Yeah, Charles Wright's going to get the wild card for both of them, and of course, at the end of the day, he's got the second place, and he was the top finishing non-GP rider, so I guess he deserves it. But okay, Bomber maybe not. You could argue Bomber's nowhere near the sort of being able to compete in the Grand Prix like he was able to 10 years ago. But you would not. You write Chris Harris off at your peril, don't you?
Absolutely.
Well,
He'd be a fan's favourite as well. Right, so we go. If you want to put the shout box up a little bit, there's a few comments that I'd like to tick off the list. Go a bit further, I think. Okay, so I've read that one. So Pete Clark says rider of the week, Vinny Ford.
Vinny Ford.
Vinny Food, it says there, for not breaking the tapes last night as his clutch fell to bits. Any predictions for Sunday at Glasgow for the under-21?
I haven't seen the lineup for that one yet. I'll have a look at it. So it's a bit late to do it now, but obviously we'll talk about that on the next show, I would imagine. So.
Craig Smith says rider of the week, all 4 from last night's final. Yeah. Simon Corbett says Will Carnes. And there was definitely some more for me to read, so if you want to take it a little bit further. Nick Skippy Matthew, I'll read that. I've had a good start in this season's prediction that the score, just hope it continues, and my target this season is to beat Phil Taylor. Okay. John Hope, I have been saying for years, back to Tony Mole's days, that at Perry Bar we need to entertain the Asian community, involve Asian food outlets, dancers and bands to entertain before and during interval. Try to bring in Asian sponsors. Perry Bar now is an Asian district.
Yeah, I think so.
It is an Asian district. It's also got quite a big Polish contingent, or it used to. I just don't think they're
It's a different
interested
audience.
in
It's
it.
a different audience.
I just don't think they're interested in it.
Polish fans are not like British fans. That's the thing, though. They don't go and watch Speedo. They go and watch their team win, and they're most upset when they don't. So,
but I don't think there's not many Asians in motorsport. Full stop, is there?
No, I don't think there is. No.
My brother works with quite a few Polish people, and he says none of them are Speedway fans. Now, when you consider that it's supposed to be their national sport, he says they've heard of it, but none of them like it. They don't watch it. So,
yeah, I think it's in a particular area of Poland, isn't it?
Yeah,
like the south or something like that. I don't know. So I don't know.
And before we go, Rider of the Month for last month, April, was Dan Thompson, by the way.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well
I thought he
done.
might do better in the at Bellevue last night, but not to be. But he's going to have plenty of chances, I think. So
Yeah. He's certainly one to for the future, I think. Right. Well, on that note, we're at the end of our time,
We certainly are.
which sounds a bit fun. Right, everybody, have a great week. Enjoy your team while you can, and we will see you next Monday. Good night.
Good night.
good night.
Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today?